Welcome to the Daily Surrender, a space for real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about what it truly means to live in alignment with God's design. I'm Jennifer Ragazzo, a soul-aligned wellness coach who is far from perfect and still figuring out this whole human experience, just like you. Here we talk about the messy, the beautiful, and everything in between as we learn to let go, trust more, and step into the peace and freedom that's already waiting for us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Daily Surrender, where we explore what it looks like to surrender the struggle and embrace the abundance along the way. In today's episode, we're going to get a little bit personal into my own journey to really embracing divine flow and surrendering to the path versus gripping in this world that glorifies hustle and achievement and rigid plans, a world that tells us that once we choose a path, we must cling tightly to it, no matter what. And what I've discovered along the way is that life with God is not about rigid control at all. It's about surrendering. It's about pivoting when the Spirit whispers to us, "This way, my beloved." It's about trusting that when we let go, He catches us every single time. Today, in this episode, I want to give you permission to pivot, to flow, to listen, to trust. This is a message that's really been brewing on my heart for a really long time, as I struggled, to be honest, with this pivoting, with the flowing, with listening when I would feel this nudge to take a different direction in my life, to try something new, to let go of something that I wasn't feeling anymore was right for me, but once was right for me. And I wrestled a lot with it. I shoulded myself. I looked outward and beat myself up because I felt so different and I felt so wrong in these nudges and desires that were coming up in me to pivot. So wherever you are today, whether you're walking or driving or cooking, or perhaps you're just sitting down with a cup of tea, buckle up and let's explore this, because perhaps what I've been going through over, I would say it's been a lifetime, truly, when I really zoom out and look, because what I went out to become in this world at 18 when I went away to college, it's not exactly what it looks like today, but I can see so clearly how every step on my path was placed there very intentionally to grow me in wisdom, to grow me in perseverance, to grow in my awareness of who I am and the gifts that I have been given to use in this world. So I'm going to share a little bit of my own background with you. I'm going to bring you and invite you into my own journey specifically over the last 5.5 years. So 5.5 years ago, I had been running a coaching business at that point for almost 7 years. And the pivot even into coaching for me was something that I didn't go out planning to do when I was 18 or 22 or 30 years old. It was something that came on my path through a series of divine synchronicities, a lot of life changes, a lot of soulful digging. At 18, I went to college for nursing, and after a year decided that wasn't for me. I switched my major to be psychology, still not really knowing what I wanted to do with it. And I accelerated my academics and finished the degree in 3 years and got into the Graduate School of Education. I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, and I finished with a master's in education. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be a teacher. That's what I'm going to do in this world. I'm going to be a teacher. And I taught in a classroom for 6 years before having my first baby and taking a step back to be at home with her. And during those years of raising little children, I knew that I wanted to continue to educate. I was love teaching. I absolutely love standing in front of people of any ages and teaching and connecting with them. I love the human psyche. My bachelor's in psychology absolutely has served me really well. And it was a great launching pad, even though I didn't want to continue my education and become a traditional therapist. And again, another story for another day, but through a lot of twists and turns over the years, I got led to the fields of health coaching. And I went back to school for integrative nutrition and I hung my shingle and I started coaching. And because I am a constant seeker of knowledge, of truth, of understanding, I wanted to know more. And I began diving deeper into functional medicine. And I went to a program, on an online program, where I got trained in applied functional medicine. And that changed how I was able to work with people even more. I was able to dig deeper. And then I continued. I continued to take certifications and courses, and it felt like I couldn't learn enough. And I had a certification in naturopathy and functional wellness and all kinds of different modalities that I would dive into. But the biggest teachers were always the clients that sat before me. And so I was working, and again, I'm going to go back to the last 5 years. I was working and I was happy. My practice was successful. On the outside, it looked like I had everything. I had 3 children and have 3 children. They were much younger at the time, but I was momming and wifing, and yet my own behind the scenes, because there were deeper layers in my own self that I had not been able to tap into. I was doing all the things I knew to do at the time to help support my health and wellness, to support my healing journey. And my healing journey has been long too. That will be another episode. But I was feeling a discontent inside of me. I call it today the divine discontent that invites us to look at what is inside of us that is not feeling like it is for us, that's perhaps calling us in a different direction. So I had some divine discontent. I was in a small group at the School of Applied Functional Medicine where we would do things like all run some functional tests on ourselves and share our results with each other. I had run a bunch of different functional tests that year on myself all at the same time. And it came back and I was my sickest client. I was on fire. And it really stopped me in my tracks. I was starting to struggle with anxiety and depression, again, behind the scenes. I was really good at putting up a good face. And I didn't want anyone to know what I was struggling with because I had so much shame with my struggle. My marriage wasn't in a good place. We had been married at that point for 22 years, and we got married right out of grad school, the both of us, and had met really young. So he was my high school sweetheart. And we were growing up together. And then parenthood and the busyness of life really crowded out our time to look at one another and look at different things in our own selves that were affecting the relationship. So my marriage wasn't in a great place. I mentally and emotionally wasn't feeling really awesome. And my physical body was on fire, even though I did all the things. I was throwing the kitchen sink at myself. My goodness, I did more than I would ever recommend to my clients. And yet I wasn't feeling my best self. I knew there was something different for me out there, even in the way that I was coaching. I was feeling a discontent in how I was showing up in my practice, how I was working with people. Functional medicine, which at one point really felt like it had all of the answers, was feeling like it had gaps for me. I was questioning it. Some things about it didn't feel right. It felt like I was just acting in an allopathic manner sometimes when I would recommend supplementation for symptoms that people were experiencing without getting to the real root of what was driving their symptoms metaphysically. And so, what happened during the season of my life was my knees hit the grounds. My knees hit the grounds in a prayer. I'll never forget that prayer because I journaled it and I wrote it down. And I said, I don't know what to do, God, but I need help. I need something. I need help physically. I need somebody else's eyes on me because I'm doing all the things and the needle isn't budging. I need help emotionally, mentally, and I really need help spiritually. I feel distant. I felt very distant from God. I knew God existed, but I could not feel God. And I would do the things that I knew how to do to connect with God. And a lot of them were religious things that I knew from my upbringing in the Christian faith. But a deeper connection with God was what I was really longing for. So I prayed for a spiritual mentor too. And God, in all of God's infinite wisdom and intelligence and brilliance, brought me an amazing mentor and coach. She came into my life shortly after my knees hit the ground, and she was in my world, I should say, my health and wellness space. I had not crossed paths directly in any of the programs or groups that we were in, but through another colleague of mine, I met her, and her name is Molly. And I thought I was hiring Molly originally to help me with my health, although health is all encompassing. And that is how I coach people. And that's what I would always tell people. And yet again, I had prayed for help with my marriage. I had prayed for help with my spiritual health, my mental and emotional health, and God delivered. Molly was so different. She rolled her sleeves up with me, and right away, we started digging deep, deep into the stories that I was telling myself, that I was living into, the ways that I was limiting myself with those stories and those constructs from conditioning. She would ask me really, really challenging questions. And she would ask me over and over again, what is it that you really want, Jen? What is it that you really, really want? And at the end of the day, I would tell her that I really wanted peace. I really wanted to be confident in who I was. I remember at one point telling her, I want to be as confident and impactful as you are in this world. I don't want to be you. You're you. I want to be me though. Yet I don't even know who me is, because I feel like I have done so much shoulding along this journey. And here I am again, and I'm feeling this nudge to pivot. And I thought that I had it all together. I had already pivoted away early in my education in college from nursing and gone into psychology, and then pivoted from there and gone into education and worked in the education space in an actual classroom. And I didn't feel called to go back to that. So I went back to school again, and I started a business, and I was a very traditional health coach at first. And as I would coach people over the years, I found that I really, really loved getting into their constructs. I loved what I would label as more life coaching. And I had gone for different trainings and life coaching and all of these things. And it was just a bunch of labels. What I was really, really feeling was that there was this uniqueness in me that couldn't have a label put on it, but I felt wrong for that. I felt shameful because I thought there should be a direct path, and I need to follow somebody else's system for my life path. And I needed to be who somebody else told me to be. And repeatedly, Molly would reflect back to me that that's not the case. We're finding you, Jen, and you is not wrong. And little did I know at the time when I started with her that I had a very, very deep, deep, what I call today, wrong wound that came from early conditioning in my childhood, where I perceived myself to not be right unless I made everyone else around me happy, or I acted in a way that I perceived that other people thought I should do. And so I'm walking around with this wrong wound that felt very much like I had an emergency brake on as I was trying to drive forward uphill. And I wasn't aware of that. So I worked with Molly, and I worked with Molly for years. At first, she was really, truly like my coach. We were working on me. And over time, she became my mentor. So it was this hybrid of, she was always there to support me. She actually worked one-on-one with my husband, which tremendously helped our marriage, helped us learn to get to know each other individually and then collectively together. She helped me with every relationship in my life, personal relationships, professional relationships. And in all of it, Molly always helped me by helping me get to know me and helping me get to know God in me and get to know myself as a very unique creation of God. This went on for years. Molly and I worked together for years, again, in this mentorship relationship. And she became one of my most important special people. And in January of 2023. So we're about 3 years into this relationship, 3 years into a very, very deep dive into Jen, getting to know who Jen is, removing the shoulds, forgetting what all the things that the world told me to be, learning how to trust, like really deeply trust, learning how to use my unique voice in the world and coach in a way that felt very aligned with how God was guiding me to coach. So in January of 2023, Molly invited me to a Zoom call. And we talked every Monday. Every Monday was our mentorship Monday. We would get on a Zoom call for 3-4 hours and just dive into all the things. We would talk about so many, many things, client cases, anything coming up for me in life. And again, Molly was mentoring me. She was guiding me. She was a friend, all of the things. And it was a random Thursday. And Molly said, "Can you hop on a Zoom?" And I thought, that's weird because anytime that we would hop on a call, we would hop on a phone call if it was not during our scheduled Monday mentorship, or we would text all day long. So I got this little feeling inside of me that something was up. And I got on a Zoom with Molly, and Molly said, "Jen, I've got some good news and I've got some not so great news. Which would you like to hear first?" And my heart was just racing. And I said, just throw it at me. What is it? And she said, "I've got cancer." And it's an interesting situation because they say it's terminal. And it was jaw cancer. She had no risk factors for jaw cancer. She said, "It's not lost on me that it's in a place on my body where I use my mouth every single day to invite people higher to help them find truth. And I'm not going to do the traditional things that they suggest. There's no cure for jaw cancer anyway, but you can perhaps buy yourself some time by doing a very disfiguring surgery and undergoing chemo and radiation." And that just was not Molly at all. Molly was extremely holistic to begin with, and that was not the path that she chose. So in that conversation, Molly invited me to come closer, to come even closer into her life. She said, "Come closer to my fire." And she said, "In this walk with me that you are being invited to, if you choose, there's something for you to learn that you will take with you for the rest of your life that will help you and will help other people. And you're going to learn firsthand, Jen, that there is no fear in death." So that walk with Molly over the next 6 months was the most beautiful, exquisite, bittersweet, painful experience of my life to date. She passed away a day after my birthday in June of 2023. And although I felt like I was as prepared as I possibly could be, her and I had grown so much closer during those last 6 months. So she poured absolutely everything she had into me to make sure that I would remember all of the pearls of wisdom that she bestowed upon me. She reminded me every day of the little things that she was teaching me that were really big things. And I would write them down, screenshot her text messages. I have folders on my phone and in my notes section, and journals upon journals upon journals of handwritten notes from my Molly wisdom over the years. But there just was nothing that could really prepare me for her physical loss. She had promised me that her work here would not be done, that some of her sand in the hourglass of time that she lived would be in my hourglass now. Some of that sand would be in my hourglass, and that she would just be like one thought, one breath away, because the soul never dies. And until you experience that, it's just a concept in your head. And so at the time when she first left, it was really hard for me. It hit my body really, really, really hard. And my heart, of course, grief is grief, and you cannot rush grief. Anybody listening who has experienced grief understands it. You grow around grief, but you can't force the growth. You have to just allow it. So my early days of Molly being gone were really hard, really, really hard for me. And metaphysically, my body expressed the grief and some of the trapped emotions that I didn't understand in a way that really got my attention. My gut issues, my digestive issues were something brand new that had never occurred for me before. I pulled out all the tools that I knew in how to address them, all the things. I even I even hired my mentor and teacher at the School of Functional Wellness and Naturopathy. She was a dear friend of mine. And I had told her, "You are the only other person that I trust with myself, my case, my body. You know me really well. You knew Molly. Can you help me?" And her name was Jen. And after going through all my labs and testing, and she said, "Jen, it's your nervous system." I said, "Yeah. No kidding. I know that, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." So during this season of my life, and I'm not going to go into all of the details because this podcast episode will be too long, but I continued to lean in harder to some of the limiting beliefs and the things that felt really sticky and challenging to me during my work with Molly. And some of those things for me were boundaries. Jen said, "You need stronger boundaries, Jen. You need better boundaries with everyone in your life. It's still regulating your nervous system." And I would do the things, and yet I would still feel dysregulated. So it didn't really feel okay to me, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. Under the surface, my body was freaking out. The nervous system was perceiving what I was doing to be very, very unsafe. And I could not figure out why. I couldn't figure out why. I wasn't sure what I was doing again in my business. Molly and I had started before she got diagnosed with cancer to build out a group program, and we were doing it together. And I had launched that program, and it was out there, and I knew it needed a little something different, yet I was lacking the energy to put into it. And after a few months of getting some traction underneath me and again growing around the grief, I was able to put the program back out there, the Vibrant Rise Functional Wellness Collective, and it felt so good. Inviting the women into the program felt so good and so honoring to the work that Molly had taught me, the work that Molly and I had done together. And yet I still felt something else inside of me that was calling me to just something. I didn't know what. And here's the deal, guys. Every single thing that I teach another person, that I invite someone else to, I walk through myself. The details might be different, but there is nothing that I suggest to somebody else that I haven't tried myself, that I don't invite them to go to a certain depth of their own healing if I haven't gone to that depth myself. So once again, God was inviting me to go to a place that I had not yet gone, really get into the deep crevices of my own soul and look for the shadows, look for the things that were there that were blocking the light from being able to really fully radiate in and out. I could feel it and sense it. So I was praying again. It was another one of those dark night of the soul moments in my life where my knees hit the ground, and much like it did before I met Molly. And I said, "I know there's something else. I don't know what it is, but something to help me be able to move forward, to be able to tap in and understand myself and understand this longing inside of me. It's calling me somewhere else. It's calling me to something, and I don't know what that is." Not to mention my digestive issues had not gone away despite all the things. Like everything. And thank goodness this was not an actual client of mine. I had never had a client that didn't respond to any of the things that we brought on board, but I was not responding at all. And I had my mentor, Jen, baffled. And so during a series of divine synchronicities, once again, in my asking for what is it that will help me to be able to dig into these deeper layers, I got led to doing a guided MDMA session. So, MDMA is a medication that was originally designed to help complex PTSD patients to be able to get deep into their PTSD, to calm the amygdala. Basically, it makes the amygdala go to sleep. So, the amygdala is wired for safety, and it's like an alarm system that will go on whenever it perceives danger, danger, danger. As a part of our brain. And sometimes it's so wired for protection that a little leaf will blow by and the alarm will get tripped up. So some people have a really hard time getting into their traumas, their pain, their limiting beliefs, the distorted constructs that came from their conditioning from their childhood. And that was me. There were things that I could only get into so far with therapy, with coaching, with reading all the books, with doing EMDR and EFT, so many different modalities for tapping in and calming the nervous system and regulating the limbic system. So I had heard about MDMA. I researched it a little bit, and as soon as I learned what it did to the amygdala, I said, "I'm game. I want to do that. Absolutely. I think this is for me." And it made me giggle a little bit because the street name for MDMA, the street drug name, is Molly. And even though pure MDMA used therapeutically is not the same as the street drug, um, again, it made me smile and I thought, oh man, okay, all right, I'm going to just lean in. I was feeling like this is the thing. And so I hired beautiful two partners that worked in a business, but they were partnering in guiding MDMA journeys. And it is something that is underground and it's been being done for decades since got pulled from being legalized in 1980s. But I found these beautiful guides that I actually also happened to know, which was another just divine synchronicity. And it was the most transformative experience of my life. In my first journey, I was able to really go deep into my grief. I was able to understand the grief and also feel the enormity of the love that not only Molly had for me, but the love that was God's love, really, truly working in and through Molly. I understood why I was so dysregulated. I understood why when Molly died, the one person, the earthly person that I fully trusted was gone. And I understood that so much better because my amygdala quieted and I was able to have that veil lifted and so clearly see what were constructs of my own mind. And if they were constructs of my mind that I constructed over time, I could deconstruct them. And needless to say, it was absolutely transformative, healing in so many different ways, even physically. My digestive issues were gone within probably about a week of doing my journey, just completely gone, a thing of the past. I was starting to sleep better than I ever had before because I wasn't functioning with this simmering fight or flight because didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe in the world. I didn't feel safe in my body. And without Molly physically here, I didn't feel safe. And as soon as I did that first journey myself, I laid in bed that night and I knew that this was part of my soul work. I knew that bringing this to people, helping people get this deep was going to be part of how I showed up in the world. I did not know how. I said, God, I have no idea how, because obviously this is not something I put on my website directly. But I'm going to bring this to people because in my years of coaching, and especially the years I worked with Molly, I was changing. I was very mind, body, spirit. I have always been, but the more that I let go of thinking that I needed to practice with heavy protocols and tons of supplements and prescriptive diets, the more that I let go of that and I got to know the unique person before me always, and I would look for the things that were in the way of their own healing, the more that I was able to invite them into a very holistic, integrative approach of health as being all encompassing. But this was like next level. This was a tool I knew that was going to help those clients that felt called to it themselves, called to dig deep into the metaphysical, called to dig deep, deep, deep into the things that were clouding the windows of their soul. And I would be able to guide them on it. So very shortly after all of this, I know this is a bit of a long story here, and we're going to lean into more of the idea of allowing yourself to pivot shortly. So shortly after my own first journey, very much being me, I start researching and learning and diving into all kinds of training and an understanding of this process of using this sacred medicine to help people to journey this deep and to heal. And God started bringing the clients my way. So many of them were clients that I had worked with for a while, that we had gone so far in their own healing, but there was a block, much like me, where they just couldn't get into it. They couldn't figure it out. So we were able to go that much deeper into healing. It was in June of last year, after really just following this lead, experiencing such tremendous, tremendous healing myself, that I began once again to feel called in a different direction. And I had no idea this time what that even looked like. No clue. And God, I had done another journey. And on that journey, it was all the whole theme was on letting go. And this podcast actually had been brewing up inside of me. It was brewing up inside of me for a while. After my first journey, I even knew the name. I knew it was going to be called The Daily Surrender. I had the cover made for the podcast. I was all ready. I put it on my calendar. We are launching it in June. No, wait, we're going to launch it in July. When I did that second journey, what I heard God invite me to was a sabbatical of sorts. Said, Jen, there are things in your life you're still gripping to. There are things in your life you're still trying to control. And I am inviting you to a very different way of living and of being. It is not the way the world teaches you. It is not through all the marketing systems and funnels that the business coaches and all the experts tell you. It is a frequency. It is an energy of being. But first, before you do that, you need to become it. And there are some areas in your life where you are gripping. And and you're struggling, Jen. You really are struggling. And I'm inviting you to surrender the struggle and to practice it in your everyday, just practice. And so I took what felt like a very scary sabbatical. I stepped back from a lot of the things that I was doing in my business, a lot of the traditional ways of marketing my business that had kept me with a very full coaching practice for over a decade. And I took a break. I told my audience I'm taking a break. I didn't show up on social media. I thought I was only taking a break for the summer. I said, okay, I'll do this. I'll do this, God, for 3 months. September came around and I did not feel the call to return. So I think I ended up taking almost 6 months completely off of social media. My newsletter that I would fastidiously write 3 times a week, each one being themed. I'd write here and there if I felt led. I only would do the things that I really felt my soul leading me to do. I was still coaching and practicing, but I wasn't forcing anything. I didn't reopen my group program that fall because I, again, heard God just inviting me into a place of stillness. And all along the way, God continued to bring clients to me in just an energetic way that I was guiding on these very soulful, sacred healing journeys, which my dear colleague and business partner now in a group that we have called Sacred Healing have coined freedom journeys. And the more that he would bring these people before me, the more that I realized, oh my gosh, this is the work I want to do. And not just the actual work inside the medicine itself, but the coaching around it, the teaching around it, because I've been learning so much about the human condition and why we're here and what surrender looks like, not only in my own journey, but in each and every person that would sit before me, and helping them get into their limiting beliefs and their constructs and seeing where it came from and their conditioning. So much grace and compassion for us human beings. And for me, in my mind, God was really helping me develop a process for teaching them to walk forward. How do we do it? We can't do it all at once. Here on this podcast, we've already had a couple conversations about what it looks like, and we're going to have so many more. So all of this said, I was feeling that nudge again to pivot. I pivot again. And I just kept saying, God, I don't know what is happening. Like, am I going to let this business that I've poured so much into, time, resources, money, energy, my heart, my soul, all of the things, am I going to let it fall apart? Like what is going to happen? I don't even feel like I'm resonating anymore with being called a functional wellness health coach. I had dropped the functional medicine health coach a few years prior because that didn't feel right, because I'm not just straight functional medicine by any means. And here I am feeling like, oh, I'm going to drop it again. And God said, it's okay, Jen, just trust. It is okay to pivot. And so I did. I dropped it. I mean, I don't love labels, but the world sometimes asks us for labels. So now I'm calling myself a soul aligned wellness coach, which feels so much more aligned. But that pivoting took me having to talk myself through and really trust, really take a step out in faith that I don't need to know all the details. I just need to trust where God is leading me and feel into the moment and take the next best step and the next best step and the next best step. So over the past 5.5 years, as I just shared here in this whole story about my dark nights of the soul, that took me from Mali to Mali. I love that so much, by the way. It just makes me smile. I have gone from being a straight up health coach, very focused in the functional medicine approach, to stepping deeper into the soulful layers of healing, to being led after deep grief and after a lot of prayer to the sacred work of freedom journeys, using MDMA in assisting me in my ability to coach and help guide people forward. forward to taking a sabbatical, to reemerging over and over again. And now here to being in front of you hosting the Daily Surrender, a podcast that is really rooted not in formulas. Like there's no formula here on this podcast, but this podcast is rooted in being very present. It's my presence here that I'm trusting. So each of the pivots for me were terrifying, if I'm being really honest. And I'm honest. Each pivot at the same time, as scary as each pivot has been, each pivot has also been very holy. Each pivot has required me to take my eyes off of the how and fix my eyes on God, fix my eyes on Jesus. I'm a very visual person. So the fixing my eyes on Jesus has me imagining when Jesus was standing out of the boat on the water and he invited Peter to walk out on the water. He invited him to lock eyes with the one who was calling him forward, right? Onto the waters. So what I see is when I keep my gaze locked, like really, really locked on him, I stand and I stand strong and I stand confidently. But when I focus on the waves, like when I take my eyes off and I look out at the waves around me and the winds around me and the noise of the world, the fear kicks in, the uncertainty kicks in, all the expectations that I sense and perceive, they have me wobbling and I sink. Here's the deal though, it's so beautiful. Even when I sink, God's hand is right here, right there, pulling me up, pulling me forward, helping me get back on track in grace. It's grace upon grace, my friends. I want you here today, you listening to this podcast episode, to know something. I want you to know that you're allowed to pivot. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to lay down your old dreams, your old identities, your old versions of yourself. If the spirit is inviting you to something new, it is okay to change. It is okay to pivot. It is okay for something to be really right for you at one season of your life and not right for you at this season of your life. You are not wrong, my friend, because you pivot, because you're called to something new, because you're called to change. God doesn't call us to a life of rigid plans. He calls us to abide. He calls us to listen. We're called to flow, to trust that the Spirit will guide us to the greener pastures. Even if the path looks really wild and unfamiliar to us, it's actually kind of supposed to, because the details are not for us to know. The details are for us to trust that the one who has everything in his hands is in. The details are already known. It's just the unknown to us that can feel a little wobbly and a little scary. So this whole process is about dropping out, like really dropping out of the noise of the world and into the still small voice within. It's within us. It's in you, my friend. It's all about remembering. We are in the world, yet we are not of it. The world tries so hard to tether us to its shiny objects, to its timelines, to its expectations. Think about it. Like even the way our school systems are so programmed. We go to school from kindergarten until 12th grade, and then you should know what you're going to do with the rest of your life. I have young adult children right now, 18, 20, and 22. And oh my gosh, my heart goes out to all of them. I have had one in particular who has pivoted so many times over the past 4 years since graduating from high school. And she's on a path right now, but she, even where she is right now, she's like, I don't know that this is my path forever. And I'm like, it's okay. It is so okay. But the world tells us we need to have it all together. You need to know, go get your training, go get your education, get your job, and stay there until you retire. And retirement needs to look a certain way too, by the way. The tethering to the world and to its expectations and its timelines can feel like we're walking around bound by chains. But the Spirit frees us to live untethered, unburdened, and free. It is such the better way to live, my friends. It is where fullness of life is found. It is where freedom is found. But the path to realizing it, it can be twisty and turny and not without pain and not without effort. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can attest to all of it. Being on the other side of the past 5 years, and I'm in it every day. I am not saying at all that my journey is done. There is no done. I'm here for a reason. I'm here to continue to grow and evolve. But being on the other side of a very intense 5 years of deep soul work, of just literally taking my entire life and tearing it to the ground to rebuild it, I can tell you it is worth all of it. It is worth it. It is worth it. Seek and ye shall find. That is Matthew 7:7. That is one of my favorite verses because it is so true. You can trust it. When you seek, you will find. It will not always come in the way that you expect. The script, we can't write the script. We're not supposed to write the script. We hold very loosely to the vision that God has laid upon us. And it's not that we don't lean into it. It's the details that we're holding loosely to, because God's details might be vastly different than ours, but they're always better. I mean, let's be real, in that pivoting can feel very terrifying, not just emotionally, but even physically. And I want to talk about that here too, because when it's physically feeling terrifying to us, that's our nervous system. We can sometimes take that as a sign that we need to go back into the sameness. Danger, danger. We're not to go forward in this. So our nervous system, again, I want to educate you here so you understand, because if you're in this place too, you might get a little confused when you're like, my soul is longing for this and I'm moving forward, but my nervous system seems to be working against me, and my heart is racing and I'm getting diarrhea and my palms are really sweaty. And does that mean that I'm not supposed to do this? So our nervous system gets wired to what is familiar. So even if what's familiar is not aligned anymore, it still feels safe to our amygdala. That's the part of our brain, again, designed to protect us from the unknown. So the amygdala doesn't know the difference between danger and change. It simply sounds the alarm anytime that we're in new territory. And that's where that MDMA medicine comes in so brilliantly, because it quiets it. So when we really want to do some deep exploring and understanding of ourselves and unpacking of our story and excavating of the things that don't serve, it's like 10 years of therapy in 6 hours. But in our everyday, not all of us are walking around on MDMA. That would not be advisable by any means. But in our everyday, recognizing, okay, that's just my nervous system. That's just the amygdala sounding the alarm, but I get to say to it, you actually are safe. We're going to still do the thing and you are safe. So surrender, when we're surrendering into this process and we're leaning in to the call that God is laying on our heart, that Spirit is leading us towards, it requires a lot of compassion, grace and compassion for self, always. Always, my friend. It's why change can feel like death to the old self, because it is. It is. I have experienced so much grief over the past few years outside of the grief of just losing Molly. Every journey that I did personally, and then all the integration in between, I experienced sadness and grief. And I've come to realize that that's very normal. And I can assure all of my clients when they're feeling it themselves that it's very normal, because it does feel like death to the old self. And we do need to grieve it, even when we're ready to let it go, right? So every time we listen to that inner nudge and we follow it, we are rewiring ourselves for faith instead of fear. Think about that. When we rewire ourselves for faith over fear, we are rewiring ourselves to walk in the presence of God, to embody the divine mind of God that is inside of us. That is the better way, my friends. That's the better way. We're stepping away from the world and living divinely. We embody trust. We embody freedom. Can you imagine what that does for your overall well-being, your physical healing? I mean, as again, somebody who's worked very deeply with people on health and wellness over the past decade, I can tell you that it's everything. When we get to this root, healing, it opens the door for healing. So, how do we practice trust and surrender? Let's get into that right now. I have a few invitations for you. I always want you to walk away from these podcast episodes feeling empowered with some action steps. So, number one, daily stillness, creating a few minutes a day of stillness to simply listen. This can feel so uncomfortable if you're not used to being still. By the way, the nervous system can also perceive this as like danger, danger. I've had clients who struggle to stay still for even 1 minute. That's okay. Please remove judgment. You have to start somewhere, and it is a practice. So find your edge, right? Find the edge where it's uncomfortable, but you can show up for it. Just like in a yoga practice, you don't look around the room and shut yourself because some people are, I don't know, standing on their head for 10 minutes or holding themselves in really crazy poses that right now you're not able to do, but your growth edge, you find your growth edge and you decide, I'm going to sit still every day for 2 minutes. I'm going to set an alarm and I'm going to use my breath and I'm going to just simply listen without an agenda, no agenda, asking the spirit, where are you leading me today? That's it. I've been doing that practice every day for years. Molly really, really helped me to learn how to calm my mind and sit in stillness and start my day with, God, where are you leading me? What would you like from me today? What do you have for me today? How can I be the best me today? And I just listen. I just listen. Number two, releasing old labels. So reflecting on any titles or roles or expectations that you might be clinging to out of fear. Go fear hunting, my friends. Perhaps this is part of your daily practice too. Maybe you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day just scanning, scan for fear, scan for shoulds, scan for roles or expectations that are there that don't feel good to you, and gently bless them and ask God if it's time to lay them down. Perhaps you need to challenge some of your shoulds, challenge the narratives. Like you find the label and ask, is this true? Is this actually true? You will know, I promise you will know inside of you. Next suggestion is to take one brave step. So choosing one small step that feels aligned but scary. Just one small step. I can't tell you what that step is because your step is for you. What might feel really scary to you might not feel scary to me, but what feels scary to me might not feel scary to you. So take it. I have a client that I guided on a journey probably a little over a month ago. And one of her brave steps has been to take a bath just a few times a week. Just take a bath with no phone and just be. So she's combining an opportunity for stillness. She is rewiring her nervous system to be still. She was never able to do that. She never would do that. She actually struggled to be still. She always, part of her programming was that she had to be doing something all the time. She had to be productive. And there were a lot of reasons for that. And so, in countering that old story, she is practicing doing something that feels really, it feels scary, but is really aligned with her goals and where she's wanting to go. And it's been beautiful for her. Not always easy either. But that might not be something that's hard for you. So I can't tell you what it is, but you want to pick the thing that feels scary and take a step out in faith and let God meet you there. Stay close to the source. When fear arises, and it will, again, we're in the world to grow and evolve. So trials are going to come and fear is going to come. Don't shame yourself when you feel the fear. Return your gaze, just like Jesus did to Peter, like Peter did when he was walking on the water towards Jesus. Trust that his hand is always reaching out to you. All you need to do is return your gaze. It's a divine tap on the shoulder, a divine invitation. Oh, wait a second. I'm outside the divine mind of God that is inside of me. Always remind yourself, this is in our consciousness. We don't have to go reach out of ourselves. We don't need to go somewhere. God is in us. So staying close to the source is just reminding yourself, wait, source is inside of me. That's right. I'm feeling fear. I'm just outside. That's all I need to do is switch, pivot. So we're going to wrap up this episode today. It's a little longer than my normal episodes because, again, I shared some of my own journey in pivoting. And in the wrap up, my friends, I want to remind you that you are not meant to live a life of rigid control. You are meant to live a life of spirit-led freedom. You are allowed to pivot. You are allowed to listen. You are allowed to follow the voice that calls you to rise. The voice, the divine voice that calls you to rise inside of you. Not the voices outside of you in the world, but the voice inside. You can trust that voice. If you feel a stirring inside of your heart, a longing to step into deeper freedom, deeper healing, deeper alignment, know that you do not need to walk this journey alone. You're never alone, ever, first of all. God is inside of you. And sometimes God will lead you to other people to walk it with you. He gifted us with each other. We reflect God back on one another. We are meant to walk in community. We are meant to be walking each other home. So just like I did when I prayed many years ago for somebody to help guide me, I locked arms with her. And since her passing, God has given me and gifted me with so many other people that are walking this journey with me. I don't walk it alone. And you, my friend, do not need to walk it alone either. If you feel called to working together, whether that is through something like a freedom journey, or it's in soul aligned coaching, or another offering in my whole menu of offerings in the way that I show up in this world, just reach out to me. You can go to the show notes and go to my website and explore my offerings. There's an application there, or you can just shoot me an email. Let's step into the unknown together, hand in hand with the one who makes all things new. In the meantime, keep surrendering, keep trusting, and keep going. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this episode sparked something powerful in you, a deeper awareness, a new perspective, or simply the permission to surrender a little bit more. If you found this podcast helpful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, the journey to healing and freedom is not about striving. It's about surrendering, trusting, and allowing your true self to rise. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering the struggle, keep embracing the abundance that is already within you. I'll see you soon.